is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled-ish. A Song of Ice and Fire 2, Electric Boogaloo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition. I'm going to say all of that every time.
You said you were going to use them all, and I didn't believe you, and now I am, now I'm embarrassed. I didn't respect your dedication.
In this episode, RoShawn and I are going to discuss what's coming up for the new Song of Ice and Fire project, how it works, what she's spoiled on, what kind of spoilers listeners can expect, and what's happening to the old show. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn.
Guys, I am super duper excited.
I'm pretty excited myself.
Ah!
People were in the group all like, but when is the show starting, though?
Everybody's
like, it's
over-eager.
It's coming. Just calm down.
So, I am aiming this episode primarily at people who have listened to Unspoiled Song of Ice and Fire, and this pops up in their new feed, and they're like, they're doing what? Because a lot of people who listen to other shows know what's going on already.
And they're all like, who the fuck is RoShawn?
Right,
because
exactly.
I don't exist in this alternate reality of your original Song of Ice and Fire world,
So
I don't exist.
Why don't you tell them who you are? RoShawn, who are you?
I am RoShawn. I am the co-host and formerly unspoiled unicorn of the Harry Potter podcast. I am a big fan of the HBO show Game of Thrones. I just choose not to acknowledge that last season, and quite frankly, I'm just waiting for season 8 to start. I don't know what the holdup is, but, whatever, I'll keep checking the HBO app to see what's up. And you and I do Westworld, and we do The Wire, and we're doing Harry Dresden right now. Mm-hmm. So if you guys haven't checked those out, I would low-key recommend you do, because
I high-key recommend you do.
High-key?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I did co-host some of the later Game of Thrones with you and Miles, so some people may know me from that.
Correct. So, everybody, the reason that I've decided to revisit Song of Ice and Fire, because I know a lot of people have been sort of like, but why are you doing this? The first time you did it, it was very good, and I have never recovered a thing for the podcast other than Harry Potter. And Harry Potter, because so much of those books have like a mystery element, it's a very different thing than recovering A Song of Ice and Fire, which,
right.
I mean, I guess there are some mystery elements, but being that it's an unfinished series, it's hard to know. And the reason for it is multifold. First of all, RoShawn just hasn't read the series, and I just really wanted her to get to do that.
And I've been wanting to do it, and have been low-key putting it off because you and I had joked about doing this a while ago. Mm-hmm. All of our projects start with you making a joke. And then before I know it, I'm smack dab in the middle of some ridiculous series.
That is kind of like, I'm doing that, like, it's getting hot in here. I'm just kidding, unless you're going to do it. That is kind of how I operate, so that's fair. So that's the first thing, is wanting RoShawn to read this. The second thing is that I know that I had a very different mindset when I went through the first reading. And I fully expect that going through this again, I am going to have a very different response to some of the plot elements than I did the first time.
Have you revisited that first read?
Oh,
Have
no.
you listened to anything? No?
No, I am
But
not interested in hearing Brendan's voice. I feel like that would be very upsetting.
You know what? That is fucking fair. I'm sorry, I didn't think about that.
No, it's fine.
But you have a pretty good grasp on what your original reactions were, and you remember how you felt about plot points enough that you'll be able to compare them.
I think so. And I'm sure
Okay.
that there are going to be people who are going to listen to both and will remind us also. Like, oh, Natasha said this last time. Do you still feel that way? Or it doesn't seem like you do. Because there are a lot of people out there who listen to Unspoiled who are dedicated about the way that they go through episodes. And, I mean, those of you who listen to Harry Potter know that I think it was Laura who made the chart of your predictions and what, like, you know. So I think that will probably be part of the experience of reading this again. And the final thing, mentioning that I do not want to hear Brendan's voice, that sort of sums it up. I have created a massive, like, catalog of shows for Unspoiled. And I have ownership of all of them. But A Song of Ice and Fire is the one that it all started there. And it feels really strange for everything to have started there and for that host to not be part of Unspoiled anymore, for my life to have changed so much. And I kind of want to lay claim to that territory as something that I have done without Brendan as well. Especially
you stick your flag in it.
Yeah, you know, like, and I think a lot of people remember, if they did listen to that show, when Brendan and I announced we were splitting up, and I just assumed at the time,
That was it.
I assumed that everyone listened to this show for Brendan because he was really funny. And so my assumption was, nobody cares about me continuing the show if Brendan's not there. Like, I'm not bothering with this. And I was heartbroken because we put so much into it, but I was just sort of, it didn't even cross my mind to keep the show going by myself at all.
Right.
And then a bunch of people, like, commented and were like, why don't you just, I listen to the show for you. I don't know about other people. And I was floored because, and it's a weird thing to say because I know that it sounds like I have, like, false modesty, but I can't tell you guys, I'm dead serious. I really thought I was the straight man to his funny bits, and that I just kind of brought the backbone to the show of being the spoiled person. Siri, you just need to fucking mind your business.
Siri is always
Every
up in the middle of
time.
these fucking podcasts.
I need to figure out how to turn that functionality off. It's always my watch. But the whole idea of continue, like, I think that, you know, now that I have done so many shows, the idea that I didn't think to do shows on my own sounds like nonsense and that I'm lying. But I really had very little confidence in myself back then.
Yeah,
you
we
know?
have that on tape.
Yeah.
Well, not tape because it's not 1986, but you know what I mean.
Cassette.
I want to say that I hope, and this is weird because I'm not a part of this original podcast. I don't have a relationship with Brendan. I only met him a handful of times hanging out with you. But I feel like I want to go on record as being like, this is, for me anyway, in no way like trying to shade him out of the role he played.
Right.
You know, I personally don't feel any kind of pressure as far as, is it going to be as good as what they did? Because I personally just don't operate that particular way.
Right.
I think that the shows will be very different just because him and I are very different people, because you are not the same person you were at the time, because our climate is not the same as it was at the time. And also, the show on HBO exploded this universe, and people got to come to it without, I hate to say baggage, but I don't really know what else to call it, right?
A little bit, yeah.
So I feel like in some respects I might have an easier go of it than even Brendan did initially. Because you guys were going write for the books, right? And the only people that gave a fuck about the books at that time were purists,
right.
You know, now the audience is filled with all kinds of people, you know, book purists and only people who only watch the show, and you know what I mean. It's just a different place for this to land.
Yeah, and I think, like you said about the climate and everything, and spoilers, RoShawn's black. So, as a black woman, that's going to be a very different perspective than Brendan, the whitest white guy. And also, I have become militantly feminist and have no humor anymore. So, in that respect, I will be being harder on these, more than likely, if I'm going to be honest. So, if you are somebody listening who that does not interest you, that sort of take, you probably won't like where we're going. And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah.
But I do want to warn you all that, you know, that's what you're looking at, probably.
I mean, if people thought that Brendan was, like, too feminist at the time, which, if I remember correctly, they didn't.
They did not.
But he was more so than you were, right?
Definitely.
But people didn't, you know, it hits different when it's a man.
Yes.
You know, when it's a woman talking, then all of a sudden
Evidently.
she's screeching, she's a harpy, and, you know.
Yep.
So, yeah, guys, if you don't want to hear RoShawn's hot takes about how this particular storyline feels like racist, maybe don't tune in.
Yes.
I do want to say, though, I am so excited to read these books, you guys. I have been dying to read them for years. I read the first one and maybe 3/4 of the second one. And then I just kind of decided I'm just going to focus and be a show watcher, and maybe I'll get to revisit the books when the show's over.
Right.
I had also thought at the time that if I waited until the show was over, the fucking books would be done. And I didn't know that was going to turn out to not be true.
Precious child.
So now the new goalpost is, by the time the podcast is done, he will have finished the fucking
Oh my
book.
God, that is so not going to happen.
But I don't think he's ever... And I used to joke about how this motherfucker is not going to finish these books, because every time I was on Twitter, he was posted up at a strip club somewhere with, like, the most gorgeous woman sitting on his lap, like he's fucking Santa Claus. And, you know, I saw recently he's got his little blog that I don't follow, but I saw recently he made some kind of statement about how he was back working on the books, and he felt, like, really positive about the progress.
Right.
And I don't buy it.
No. Same.
But in order for me to join you on this endeavor, I have to believe that the books are going to be finished, because otherwise I cannot reconcile diving into this world fully understanding that it's going to just be left hanging forever. That just, you know, because, like, who would do that? Only a sick person would do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like, part of what I was sort of waiting for as well, I think, was, like, at least for the next book to come out. And my mind was sort of like, if the next book comes out, it's going to spark an interest in the series again, and that'd be a great time to restart the podcast.
Right.
But now I've just sort of come to terms with the fact that, like, first of all, I don't think he is going to finish. And,
this motherfucker don't give a shit about our feelings.
You know, and, like, second of all, now that the show is over, and we are, as a collective, I think can all agree, deeply unsatisfied with the way the show ended.
Yes, ma'am.
There is a lot of room for us to revisit the series and at least sort of, like, fan wank what we would have liked to happen there. And
I hope so.
I think a lot of people want to, you know, come back to the series after the show fucked it up so bad. You know?
Yeah, I'm excited. I will say, my impression of him as a writer, there are some very specific things that he does that I'm, like, not really looking forward to. If I remember correctly, I was not... It is funny because I think you're the opposite. Like, he's... At least in the book I read, he spent a lot of time talking about food and like really detailed, like the feast and like what everyone is wearing and what food is presented and what everybody's eating, and I just could not give a fuck about any of that.
Noted.
But I think you said to me at one point that you like those details.
I do. I don't. Again, I did. We'll see, but I probably will still like them. I mean, I've only gotten fatter since I did that first series.
Listen,
so,
you and me both, girl.
You know, like, I don't know. I
maybe my perspective has changed. I just don't know it yet.
So you mentioned just now of the book you read. So let's talk about that, because RoShawn is not entirely unspoiled on the books from the beginning.
Right.
Remind me which ones you read and what you remember.
I read the first book, and like I said, I don't think I finished the second book, but I don't remember why, because that's really not like me to start a book and not finish it. I don't remember much. The first book, I think, lined up closely with the first season of the show, as far as major plot points and major characters, so there wasn't much deviation yet. We know that later on the show went like wildly,
right,
left. But at the time, it was pretty true to the source material. So in my mind, when I think of the first book, I'm mostly thinking of the first season of the show.
Yeah, I see that.
Like if you ask me what was in the book that the show didn't cover that you wish they had included, I wouldn't be able to name anything. And also, if you listen to other podcasts, you'll know that my brain works in a way that allows me to function day to day.
Oh my God.
But does not leave a lot of room for things like remembering the shit I've read.
So how long ago was it that you read them?
I read the first book, the first season of the show. So that was like, 2011 or something?
Something like that. I'm looking
at it. And then I read them both that year. And never went back. So, I've got... It was 8 seasons of a show with like a year and a bit between each season.
I'm trying to find, let's see. Season premiered April 17th, 2011. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's almost 10 years since I've read it. So I don't remember fuck all. But I'm expecting that once we start reading it, I'll be triggered. Like, oh, that's right. Oh, I remember this character. And oh, that ended up leading to this thing. Also, in full disclosure, when I started watching the show, I didn't care about spoilers, really.
Okay.
So I tried to keep myself unspoiled, but not with the sort of dedication that I have shown when we podcast and I'm unspoiled. So I would encounter book spoilers and know something was coming on the show and didn't really care.
Right.
So the big thing was the whole L plus J thing. Right. And I just went and Googled it and spoiled myself on it like super early. Because I just didn't care. And I was like, what is this?
I think it's R plus L.
R plus L, thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I remember that when the show finally went there towards the end, a lot of people who read the books were like simultaneously vindicated, but also like unhappy. And I don't understand why. Like I don't get like what was it that made them be like, oh, this wasn't done right. Like I have no idea what that criticism is about.
Gotcha.
So that kind of stuff should be fun.
Yeah, so that will bring me to my next topic, which is what we are going to do about talking about these plot points that you know about and how listeners should handle that. I just want people to know this is not going... That's why I'm saying unspoiled-ish. It is not going to be an unspoiled show. If you are truly an unspoiled reader and you do not want the show coloring anything, like you haven't seen the show and you are not interested in that aspect of coverage, go and listen to the original show. That's what you want. But I think that because the show was such a massive cultural touchstone, and
it really was,
just really kind of changed the face of television for a little while there.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that there are going to be a lot of people who are coming to this in the same shoes that you are wearing. I've seen the show. I know what major plot points are, but I'm just interested in seeing how the books deviate because I hear they're so much better.
Right.
So we are definitely going to talk about show plot points. I am not going to go out of my way to remind you of how things went in the show if it seems like you have forgotten. I think I'm going to sort of like, you know what I mean? If it seems like there's something that just didn't stick with you, and I know that you saw it, I'm just going to see if you remember, but I'm not going to like remind you of things necessarily unless it does feel like it's important, you know.
Right. Okay.
And RoShawn may occasionally mention, oh, I read the books a long time ago, but I vaguely remember such and such might happen in the next book, or such and such happens later this book. So there are going to be some spoilers likely for within the books themselves as well. And that is entirely based on whatever she starts to remember.
Right.
And that is, you know, I think that that's fair.
I would hate for someone who's completely unspoiled to then listen to us and get spoiled. So I really want people to pay attention to what you're saying here and really make a choice, because I don't want to, you know, be a part of ruining something for someone.
Right.
I also want to say, even though, you know, we joke about the show and we're not happy with how it ended, the show, and by extension these books, which even though I don't have a relationship with the books yet, the books are the reason the show was a thing.
Right.
I hold them very, very dear, and I've talked about it on our other podcast, because the Game of Thrones phenomenon was the thing that allowed me to reach into the part of myself that is, you know, a big old geek, a big old dork. Like, most of that shit had just been me by myself, you know, enjoying stuff. And, like, Game of Thrones, the timing of it coinciding with social media blowing up and it being a huge show really was my entryway into this world that I live in now, which is being, like, a part of all these different fandoms and meeting people across those things and developing relationships based on that. So as much shit as I talk about the show, and I may talk about his writing when he just goes on for 30 pages about the giant turkey they had for dinner, no, it's coming from a place of love. All right, then. You got anything else?
And what's going to happen to the old show? So what I'm planning to do is essentially already the entire old show is not available on iTunes because there are too many episodes. iTunes is like, yeah, we'll leave the last like 300, but anything before 300, I'm sorry, we just can't do that.
Christ.
So
you have more than 300 shows?
Yeah, 300 episodes of that one. And what I'm planning to do, I mean, the old episodes would eventually, as we continue, disappear because they are going to be replaced with new ones. And I assume we are also going to hit the 300 mark, maybe less, because we're going to be doing more chapters at a time than I did with Brendan. But not necessarily that many more, because eventually the chapters get fairly long. And I think that we are still going to have to stick to an episode once we get further into the series. So what I am planning to do is I'm going to post this episode to let everybody know what's going on, to begin the official like new feed, and it's going to start on the same iTunes feed. So if people are set to download the old ones, this will pop up for them. And then as time passes, I think I'll let us get a couple of months into coverage. I will begin to remove the old episodes entirely from the feed, and they are only going to be available on the website. Because it's going to be difficult for people to sift through, I think, if they are coming to the show. Like, I think it might be a little bit confusing. You know what I mean? So that is, if you are looking for the actual totally unspoiled thing, and RoShawn and I, by the time you listen to this very first episode, are 2 years into our coverage, and you want to know where the hell it went, that's where. unspoiledpodcast.com. What's the matter?
2 years into our coverage.
Well,
my life just flashed before my eyes.
Like, and it's crazy how, like, I was looking at us covering Harry Potter, and it was 4 or 5 years of coverage.
Oh my God.
And it just doesn't feel
like
it was 4 or 5 years at all.
Jesus Christ. I'm going to be 50 fucking years old still fucking podcasting about Game of Thrones.
Let me say, Dresden Files, we are only in book 12. This motherfucker's releasing 2 books this year. We could just kiss our lives goodbye. That's it.
This isn't what I expected. But I guess it's better than just what I would have been doing, which is just sitting on the couch.
Right.
So I guess it's all a wash.
Yelling these thoughts at the TV instead of into a mic. So yeah, it's unspoiledpodcast.com, I think /ASOIAF, A Song of Ice and Fire. But don't quote me on that. I should have double checked, but I didn't. And I am aware that there are a couple of episodes missing, and for some reason, the 3rd book does not seem to show for everybody, even though on my end it looks like it's loaded. So I'm going to be working on that, and hopefully by the time I post this, I've fixed that and that's done. But I just want people to know I'm aware, and if there are additional episodes that you've noticed are missing, because full disclosure, when I started Unspoiled, I was not organized in the way that I labeled episodes. So, because I didn't know that eventually I was going to have 6,000 podcast episodes to sift through to find the thing.
How do you prepare for that?
So I would just write chapter 10 and fucking save it like an idiot. No idea what fucking book chapter 10, what?
Oh
you know,
God.
like I don't. So there are going to be occasional spots where you're like, God damn it, that episode's not here. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. Shoot me an email and let me know, and I will try and fix that ASAP.
Oh my God, that's the best.
And so yeah, that's what's going to be happening to the old feed. And in addition to that, I just want to say thank you, because RoShawn and I created a fundraiser to get us to the point where we could cover this. And it was on Patreon, which if you're interested in becoming a patron, I'm covering Mistborn right now with Miles. That's the patrons only show. Previously, we covered Twilight, which was really fun. You probably saw, if you became a patron, that there was a little like percentage meter at the bottom of the main page, which is patreon.com/unspoiled. And the reason that I did this fundraiser is because I knew that this was going to be an endeavor. I knew that the fandom can be problematic, and
I'm worried about that.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of anticipate the extra labor that was going to go into dealing with that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that we do not get the kind of reaction that I initially got when Brendan left the show, because that was extremely upsetting. It was like, I know that my viewpoints on things changed, and it was a bit of a shock for people who were not used to that. But a lot of people seem to assign the fact that my viewpoints changed to being angry about the divorce. I am, however, not the jilted, angry woman who is lashing out about men in general because she's so angry at her ex-husband. It wound up being this odd thing where a lot of me and Brendan butting heads about certain things, I look back on now and realize how right he was in like on that issue or that topic, and I had no idea what I was talking about, and was simply not educated. And Brendan was kind of the person who would like say what he believed, be very frustrated in my response, but not really get into it with me why I was wrong, or do that thing that people do where they share articles or anything like that. He never tried to like win me over to his side. So, and that's not on him. That's not his job. But that is why it wasn't until after we split up that I began to realize what my attitudes were and why I was so wrong, and begin to like turn this corner. And it was partially because of the way that like the social landscape of our country has really begun to shift and change over the last decade. And so social media alerted me to things that I didn't know about and provided platforms for people to share their stories that I began to read and started to realize, oh my God, because of all of that, it just happened to line up time-wise with my divorce. And so people seemed to think that I was being radicalized now that I was single. It was
because everything that we do has to be motivated by a man's action, right? Like, it is the only thing that creates change for us. All our actions are rooted in either the gaining of a man, the losing of a man, right?
So I just, I want people to know that it was rough when I began to do the show on my own, as people had said they wanted. But because I was changing and learning and growing as a human being and discovering I was very wrong about a lot of things that I was so glib about, the feedback began to be really misogynistic and really just specifically spiteful because I'm a woman, because I was standing up for women. And that, when I say the fandom is problematic, is the kind of thing I'm worried about. And I am not going to tolerate any of that horseshit. So if people feel like they want to write me some fucking missive somewhere, you are free to do so. But also be aware I will screenshot it and mock you in every group I am in and not feel at all bad about it. Maybe I'll block your name out. Maybe I won't. It's
if
on
you're
you.
Feeling generous.
You know, like, that's kind of the risk you're going to have to take. So yeah, I don't want to be a downer here. I am truly very excited about revisiting this, especially revisiting it with RoShawn, who is my best friend and just amazing.
Yay.
And I'm just so excited to be doing another show with her. And I really value that people have contributed to the Patreon in order to get us to cover this. And I hope that it's worth it. And I'm excited that it was like a fundraiser, but it's still going to be a public show.
Yeah, that was really cool too. That it was people contributed knowing that they weren't going to get exclusive content.
Yeah,
like, they contributed knowing that they were going to be enabling people who didn't contribute to have the same benefit. You know, so that was really cool. We were like, oh, do a real quick recording because we have another recording we're going to be doing on Sober in a couple minutes. So we should probably wrap this up. But I just was so proud of our little community, you know, which isn't as little as it used to be.
No, true.
Because people gave with the understanding that everyone was going to be able to partake of it. So, and I also think that, you know, people, you know, get a little frisky, you know, people start feeling away. I trust that our community will cover us.
Yeah, I feel really good about that in particular.
Yeah. So, all in all, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Big things are happening.
They are. So I think that, like, for the first episode, which RoShawn and I won't be, I've meant to mention this too. RoShawn and I are currently finishing up season 3 of Westworld coverage. And after that, we're going to be covering the next 2 episodes of Red Dwarf, which was a commission. And
I can't wait to see what that fucking cat is like, guys.
Out of context, that's the weirdest comment.
But it's also like the most true thing about me I've ever said. That is literally how I live my life. I can't wait to see what that fucking cat is up to.
But yeah, that's going to... So the first chapters of coverage are going to be from the day that we're recording this, which is July 11th. I'll probably post this like a week later. I would say about 3 weeks out. And I believe we'll cover chapters 1 and the prologue. I may change that, and you'll all just have to wait and see whatever pops up on your feed. But I believe that should be enough to get us all started. And
I got the audiobooks a couple weeks ago, so I'm ready to go.
Oh, is it Roy Dotrice?
It is.
Okay, I'm very interested to hear what you think, because I tried listening to the Roy Dotrice and not a fan.
What's the other option?
I can't remember. Somebody else that I think Owen is the Dotrice fan and Miles likes a different one, and I'll have to ask Miles who it was.
Yeah, I had all these fucking Audible credits because I got a subscription and forgot about it. So when I canceled my subscription, I just bought like as many books as I could get, and they were all the Roy Dotrice ones.
I might have to get those as well, though. I think they might be all that's available here. So, But anyway, we have got to wrap up. So thank you guys very, very much for listening to this, bearing with us while we go through some changes and some new stuff. I'm excited about it. I hope you are too.
Thanks to our friends that contributed.
Yes, thank you very much. And we will be seeing you pretty soon with our first episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.